and podcasters as well on this podcast. This gentleman's got a great story that I want to dive into from having the great fortune of being the beat writer for the UBC Thunderbirds back in the day, finding himself all the way to writing for The Athletic. Wrote the Carl English, helped write the Carl English book, who we've had on the pod as well. An analyst for the Raptors, a Canada Hoops head, which I know we're going to get into. We got the Olympics coming up, which will be great. Currently with Blue Jays, talk. And just when I was doing my research, chatting with people, asking people, the gentleman who recommended me and others that have talked with him, things like hardworking, salt of the earth, great guy, super focused, a guy who's a hard worker and deserves everything that he's got to this point. We have none other than Mr. Blake Murphy. How are you today, sir?
Way better after that glowing introduction. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Glad to be on here. Glad we finally found a time.
No worries. And thank you for listening to episode 136. We'll see you in the next one. Hey, man, like you got a resume, dude, and I think that's going to be great. And like I just touched on, I think, when we first started the show, it was like just strictly kind of basketball, right? Like players, former players. I know you still on the side or doing your thing or whatever, but just sort of realizing that there's this whole box and of people that are finding jobs and doing things within the field. So give us an idea, like you just said, you work your day from 15-minute increments. What's day to day like for you these days, and what do you find kind of filling your bucket the most?
Yeah, it's a little all over the place since I went to Sportsnet the last couple years because they do have me doing baseball in addition to basketball. So, I mean, you guys know how the basketball schedule kind of goes. You play roughly every second day. There's a practice or a shoot around. You do the game, and then I've got a show every day, or I'm writing off of it. That has its own cadence. Baseball's a whole different thing where it's every single day, and like if I tried to fit everything in, it ends up being like a 15, 16-hour day. So you got to pick your spots. And then obviously this time of year, I still very much have my eyes on the NBA playoffs that just started the WNBA season. So trying to fit in hoops where I can. Right now, the flow's kind of, I have a 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. J show every day. So I'm at the studio by 7:30 or 8, prep for the show, bang the show out, get to the gym or something like that. A little bit of a lull in the afternoon, and then I mean the life, and this is such a cool part of the job, is like once 7 o'clock Eastern rolls around, I'm locked in front of the TV no matter what time of year it is, no matter what season or what sport.
Yeah, it's like a good excuse, right? It's like, hey,
Yeah.
this is what's putting the bread on the table, right? So I gotta watch this game,
Got to do it
Um,
every single night.
without getting too deep into it. Early thoughts on the Jays so far this year. I'm a Cubs guy. We started hot and we've been absolutely awful for the last few weeks.
Yeah,
Give
yeah.
us the Coles notes on your thoughts on the Jays so far.
Yeah, the Jays, at least the Cubs have had that hot streak. The Jays haven't had that unless they're playing like the White Sox. So I don't know. I wouldn't say optimistic, but the zoom out and take a look at the whole picture, there's still a chance they get back in the wild card picture here. Like they're only 2 games under 500, even though it's felt like they're like 10 games under
Yeah.
500. They just got to find some sort of gear here. They haven't been able to string together, two good series in a row, similar to what's happened with the Cubs the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
At least you guys have Shota Imanaga, who's a ton of fun and arguably until his last start, the best pitcher in baseball this year. So
Yeah.
Cubs are always fun. Jays haven't really found that. That's the other thing is like the Jays, there are three ways to be an entertaining baseball team, right? You can be good, you can be a really fun team, or you can be like bad in a really funny way. And the Jays aren't doing any of those three right now. They haven't been good. The type of bad they are is just kind of bland. And then they've sucked a lot of the personality out of the club the last couple of years. So I don't know. Hopefully they can find it again now.
Yeah. Um, and it's funny too, like when you think of a start of a Major League Baseball season, you see how many games there are. You think, oh, we got lots of time, but there's a small window of time where things can go from, all right, you're done, and you still have 40 games left. Like it doesn't take much, as
Yeah,
you know.
the fact that you play every day is an opportunity, but it's also a threat, right? Like if you don't get your stuff together, you got to play again today and play again tomorrow. So like these bad stretches can they can pile on you a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. I got to see the Mariners had the Cubs like, oh, it had to have been a week or so into the season, so I went down for the 3-game set. It was awesome. That's
Nice.
a good time. Always a good time. Yeah. Well, let's do it, man. Let's go back. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, sort of a young guy growing up, where you grew up, and why or how sports became a part of your life. Was there siblings? Was there coaches? What was it that you were drawn to sports about?
Yeah, injury is what actually drew me to basketball. Sports in general. So I grew up in Cambridge, Ontario, so like 90 minutes outside of Toronto. My dad had come over from Newfoundland shortly before he had me.
Hey,
Yeah, so my dad's from Belle Isle, so like you can actually you mentioned the Carl English book. When I was working on that book with Carl out in Newfoundland, from Carl's backyard, you can like look out and see the island that my dad lives on. My dad lives back there now. Um,
that's awesome.
yeah, so my dad had just come over. My dad was a big hockey guy growing up. My dad is also like generously listed at 5'4". So I wasn't gonna have. I'm 5'10". That's like
Oh,
I hit the genetic lottery for two 5'4" parents. So
yeah, man.
um, but yeah, my dad was a big hockey guy. He also played in a fast pitch, like an underhand baseball league where most of the people who played Cambridge has a huge Newfie population because when the mines closed on Belle Island, Cambridge was kind of expanding as this manufacturing hub. So there were a lot of jobs and a lot of people came over. So yeah, there was like he played in basically an all Newfie fast pitch league. So yeah, hockey was there pretty early. Like I learned to skate pretty shortly after I learned to walk.
Mhm.
You know how these things go too. Like if you were bad at a sport early, you probably get to try a lot of different sports. But if you're good right away, then you're playing year round. You're doing power skating, you're doing summer hockey, all that stuff. So I was basically a hockey only kid until I was like 15 or 16. Wasn't gonna like I was like I played rep and I was decent, but I wasn't gonna make junior or anything like that. So it hit a point where my parents were kind of like, the driving's a lot, the money's a lot. You're not gonna play junior. Like, make a decision here. It's like, okay, I'll go play house league and I'll play once a week and I'll like fill up the score sheet, but I'll try some other sports. So I did a little bit of lacrosse, a little bit of baseball, and I was a wrestler
Nice.
in high school. So how I found basketball, I'd always like since I got to high school, I'd had like a passing interest in basketball. I played on like the grade 8 team and stuff like that, but that doesn't really count. Um, yeah, I was wrestling and I herniated a disc in my back. So that shut everything down. I couldn't play hockey. I think it ended up I still made it okay for the lacrosse season, but there were a couple months there where I couldn't do anything. And all my buddies were on the basketball team. And that was the year my high school sucked. Like the senior team hadn't won a game in a couple years. It was like a 700 person high school. It just wasn't the only things we did well were wrestling and badminton for whatever reason. So I was hurt and all my buddies were on the basketball team. I was like, well, I'll come out and like, I'll help at practices and I'll like keep the stats and stuff like that. And it ended up that like we didn't have like a coach that year. We had a coach, I think his name was Mr. Silva, and he started the year with us, but he wasn't a teacher. He was just like a volunteer. And then something happened and he wasn't able to coach the rest of the way. So we had like a teacher who was there because you had to have a teacher, but we
Yeah.
were basically running practices of like we'd go online after school and like Google like drills to do for basketball or like plays to run and stuff like that. And we had like the tallest guy on our team was like 6 feet tall. We were not very good, but we won 2 games that year. So that was kind of it. That was kind of how I got into it at first, just being injured and being around my buddies, and then it kind of snowballs from there. This is around the time like it's post Vinsanity, but before things got really bad with Vince and the Raptors.
Mm.
So I got like one good Vince year still. Bosch was coming in, and yeah, it just kind of snowballed of like, okay, well, we're doing this after school, and then we're looking up, plays and things like that. NBA Live was always a
Oh
fixture.
yeah.
And then I don't know, like I lived on a crescent, so we'd put the hoop out and had lots of places, lots of space to play and things like that. And it just kind of built from there. And then the real one, so that was kind of when I really first got into it. And then my first year at university, I went to Queen's University for undergrad. It was during the NHL lockout. So
Mm.
I presume most of the time, if you're in Canada, especially Ontario, and you go to university and you're in dorms, the pre-drink before you go out, like you probably throw the Leaf game on or something like that. But there was no hockey, so everything became basketball. And I met a bunch of friends who, were basketball guys, played intramurals, and made a bunch of friends that way. And it just kind of kept picking up from there. The like hockey having a lockout year and me not really playing it anymore. I still like hockey, but
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm like basketball is my thing. And it's just kind of built from there. Even in my career, like when I started my career, I was doing hockey and baseball stuff as well, but opportunities just kind of found their way on basketball. It's similar to how I got into the first place. It's just like, yeah, you're injured and now you have a new favorite sport, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like as you started, like what was it about basketball that kept you in it other than, many people have talked about that peer group, right? And that is one of the beautiful parts of the game is you and a few dudes or buddies, and then it's like, oh, we need a hoop and that's it, right? Like,
Yeah.
but was that kind of it, the instant camaraderie that came with the sport that drew you to it? And that's super cool. Like the teacher moderator and you guys like run and practice on your own. That's amazing.
Yeah, we weren't very good. I wish I had a little better X's. If I had the X's and O's I have now back then,
Yeah.
maybe we could have crawled to finishing 500. Yeah, it's funny. Like we played in the same district that Jamal Murray would have played in, but I'm older. Like every player that played against us would have looked like Jamal Murray. Like, um, anyway, in terms of what drew me to it, I don't know. The camaraderie was definitely a part of it. Like when
Hmm.
all, I think this is true in like a lot of stages in life of like whatever your friends are really into, you're gonna get really into as well. I think it helps too that like as a teenager, basketball has a really rich like cultural crossover. So
Mm.
I'm like a punk and emo guy, but like there's that hip hop crossover as well. There's the fashion crossover. I got really into the sneaker scene and stuff. Not that I had any money, but it's nice to look at pictures in the magazines. And then I don't know. I think basketball being such a personality forward sport helped a lot too. Where Chris Bosh rolls in as a rookie, and you feel like you actually like get to know him a little bit from afar. You have figures like Matt Bonner, Jose Calderon, and stuff like that. Just guys who you
Hmm.
can even from a fan distance get to know a little bit in a way that hockey has struggled with at times because there are more guys. You're under a helmet. There's not as much of a culture around being an individual.
Hmm.
And then also like it's just, I mean, it's a beautiful sport, right? It's so
For sure.
entertaining. So like once it gets its hooks into you, it's not like you're gonna go back and watch less basketball after. I don't think it works that way for many people.
Yeah, for sure. And also too, I mean, like, when the Grizzlies were in town is a lot more obvious when the Houston Rockets were in town than if the Oilers, right? Is like a bunch of 6'8" black dudes. Like I remember going to the Shark Club after the game. I'm like, oh, that's Othello Harrington. Whereas if it was just a regular hockey guy, like you say, under a helmet, I might not have a clue. Um, that's awesome. So you finish high school, you talked about your undergrad. Did you kind of know right away where you wanted, me being a high school teacher, talking to these kids at 17 and saying, hey, don't feel pressure that you got to know exactly what it is that you want. And if you do and you have an idea and a path, that's great. But if you're not sure, look at post-secondary as an opportunity to learn. Is this something that was a craft for you always? Was it something that developed over time?
Yeah, so I had no idea what I wanted to do
Hmm.
at the end of high school. I had done some like sports adjacent stuff. Like I remember, like I was really good at math stuff, so I would do math projects focused on sports stats in a way that like everyone does like advanced computer but this was like analytics 101 back in the early 2000s without knowing that's what it is.
Yeah.
So I would do that as like a project or whatever, but I didn't really like writing very much. Like I was good at like writing essays, but I didn't really enjoy it that much.
Hmm.
I would actually, this is super embarrassing, but the thing that I probably wrote the most is I did this thing called e-fedding, which is like it's like our online wrestling community where you're like kind of in character and you do a lot of like creative writing that way. It's super lame, but it really like that was the only
So like
writing
a
I
message
enjoyed.
board kind of thing?
Not even a
No.
message board, more
Yeah.
of like it's closer to fanfic than message board, but you're
Okay.
like interacting with like I'm a character, you're a character. We're gonna, I don't know. It's really hard to explain without any woman listening just hanging up the phone. Um
I mean, but hey, that's elements of TikTok in itself. A lot of those people are putting on characters, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so and I
yeah.
mean, like, it's wrestling, man. It's awesome. Like,
Yeah,
who didn't grow up with wrestling? I
yeah,
mean, you
and
know
I
what I
even
mean?
now I still do like yesterday I was doing play-by-play commentary for one of the local wrestling spots just to have some
Amazing.
fun and mix it up. But no, from a career perspective, like I didn't really I didn't think I liked sports a lot, but I didn't really consider it like an option.
Hmm.
And because I didn't know what I wanted to do and had really good grades and stuff like that, I kind of just like scattershot. I applied all over the place for different things. So I did apply to Brock for sport management, but I got into Queens for business. And I was kind of like, okay, well, if I don't know what I want to do, I should go to the best program and that'll keep the most options open. So I did that. And then when I got to the finish line of undergrad, I was in the exact same spot. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I applied to law school and enrolled in law school.
Yeah.
So again, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I'll just keep doing the thing that keeps the most options open. But luckily, I couldn't really, so I had to pay for all my schooling myself and work through school and stuff like that. So for law school, I had to be like, I need to take a year or two and make some money first. And it
Sure.
was in that time. So during undergrad, I had written a little bit. This was like in the early stages of Facebook when you could like write a long note and just like kind of post it on your wall.
Hmm.
Like when Facebook was almost like a microblogging app instead of just I don't know, tagging people in 6-month-old memes or whatever people do on there now. Um,
I deleted it a long time ago
I
now,
haven't
but
had it in years,
yeah,
so that's
yeah,
that's why I'm just guessing.
yeah.
But yeah, at the time you could write a little bit, so I did that, and then I would, I wrote like a couple dozen blogs maybe. But it was when I was like, I took the time off and I was working for Toyota, and I was like, then I was like really blogging, and like Raptors Republic had launched, so I was starting to do stuff there. I found Carl English's email on a whim and hit him up, and I was like, hey, could I interview? I've never interviewed someone before, but like as someone with Newfie roots, like I followed your career as much as you can on like Eurobasket and Real GM. So just did a couple things like that, and eventually I decided like, okay, I'm gonna give this a try. This actually is something that you could consider as a career.
When you first talk with Carl, there's got to be a minor element of starstruck there. No,
Oh
I
yeah,
mean the guy's a legend, right? So you're, and that must have been I mean, not knowing that it was going to continue to go forward for you, but right away it's like, okay, like keep, inner voice is like, keep the professional side. You need to get this content, but you're also like, holy crap, I'm talking to Carl English.
yeah, and like this was, something that happened pretty quick when I first started getting into basketball. Is like me and my friends would, you'd be up on the message boards or like the ESPN box scores trying to keep an eye on every Canadian guy, right? Like is
Hmm.
Juan Mendez at a Niagara going to be a thing? Where's Denham Brown going to go in the draft? And then even like at that point, like looking up how guys from Eastern Commerce are getting scouted and stuff. It just anything to see some Canadian guys representation. So yeah, I think Carl was playing for Gran Canaria in Spain at the time, but was super generous with his time and like yeah, it was a little hard to. I mean, in addition to the starstruck part, like I can get starstruck now by someone,
Sure.
but I have enough experience interviewing to like be like, shut up, Blake, like
Yeah.
just chill. Like I don't know if like I was sitting down one on one with Steve Nash, I'm still gonna be like, holy shit, this is sorry, can I swear?
Yeah.
Uh,
Don't worry about it. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Holy heck, that's Steve Nash. But I have enough experience that I could manage through it. But yeah, the one with Carl was like, okay, I have no experience, I have no skills. Half of what you have to do to interview at that time is like, is this thing I saw online correct? Because like, the stats aren't really well verified, the transactions and stuff. It's way better now, but yeah, it was. I assume it was a mess of an interview, and Carl was very, very gracious with his time. Obviously, the start of a relationship that has been a pretty good one for, I hope, for both of us to this point. But that was like, I was just some guy blogging in my room, like after work. Like he didn't have to give me the time and all that energy and stuff. So very, very grateful for that. And it was a cool, like something like that is like a cool momentum thing for like, yeah, I really do enjoy this. I really do want to do more of this. That was a lot of fun. That was a good experience.
Yeah. So what, like, as you're developing your craft, what was about it? Like to go from someone, I mean, the thought for me to like sit down and write is like hell, right? So you go from someone who's not really too into it and you start, is it because you're realizing that you can create something out of that? Is it the connection with the person? Is it you just being able to like, hey, this is what's, I mean, you seem like a pretty chatty, outgoing guy. So like you probably have lots of thoughts going on in the day that you're like, okay, Blake, half the people don't want to hear this crap, but I can type this out and maybe someone will want to read it. Like help us understand your mind frame there a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know how conscious it was.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was a lot of like you'd have conversations with stuff like, sports stuff with friends and come out of the conversation feel like, yeah, that was a cool conversation. And I wonder if anyone would want to read that. This was like my timing was also good where like blogs were first starting to take off around like
Sure.
2008 to 2010 and
Sure.
stuff too. So it's kind of this not a brand new thing, but like, J.E. Skeets writing at Ball
Shout
Don't
out.
Lie on Yahoo. That's a cool thing to see and want to emulate. And like, it was around the time Bill Simmons was blowing up as well, which at least shows, hey, there's a path to this actually being a thing that people will read and people will mess with a little bit. And then from the writing side, I think I gotten more comfortable writing like just through university, like being like figuring out that you're an okay writer and stuff. But
Mhm.
mostly it was just like, yeah, I got too many thoughts going on. Let's get some of them down on the page and see how it goes.
Nice. Um, well, keep going with it. So the next, parts of your life, how things continue to unfold for you, and this is kind of the thick of the journey, which I think is the cool part. So, tell us more about how things unfold for you. I'm guessing the lawyer fees were never paid.
Yeah, never went to law school.
Mhm.
So I deferred it a couple times, and then yeah, it hit a point where okay, it's decision time, and I decided I wanted to chase writing instead of going to law school or instead of doing the job that I was doing. So I enrolled at UBC, University of British Columbia, for a master's of journalism. Packed up a car, drove from Cambridge to
Oh,
to
you did the
Vancouver.
drive.
Yeah, I did the
Yeah.
drive, which was really cool. I'd stretched it out over like 5 or 6 days, stopped and visited friends in Calgary, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So that was cool. And that program is not a sports specific program. It's a general journalism program. So it was really good for me, uh, as someone in my early mid 20s, first of all, to just like be exposed to everything that's going on in the world, not just sports. Like as part
Mm,
of the program, we were covering, indigenous relations on campus, the treatment of underhoused people and harm reduction and things like that in Vancouver, all sorts of things outside of my bubble. So that probably helped from a like grow me up standpoint. But the
yeah, yeah.
biggest thing for me from a where I am now perspective, there were two things really, and one was I had set aside this time. It was supposed to be 2 years. It only ended up being 1 year. But where I was like, hey, this is the time I'm going to dedicate everything to trying to make this work. So I don't have to worry about my 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. job. I don't have to worry about anything other than like I had part-time jobs because I needed money still and grad school is expensive. But I could dedicate all my time to writing and podcasting and watching sports and you know all sorts of work related stuff to build my skills up, build my byline up, make sure I'm good at it, make connections, things like that.
Hmm.
And the second part is, and this was like, I was really fortunate to be at UBC at the time that I was, is I talked to the athletic department there and was like, do you guys need help with stuff? So technically it was a part-time job, but I got to end up doing a whole bunch of stuff with the UBC athletic department. So I was covering women's softball and rugby. I covered the women's hockey team when they had this historic turnaround. They had won 2 games the year prior and then went all the way to the CIS Final Eight,
Mm.
or CIS at the time,
Yeah.
U Sports now.
Dating yourself there. It
Yeah.
was CIAU for me, buddy. So don't worry about
Wow.
it. Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay. Whoa.
I got to
Wow. He
do
says,
that.
wow.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
geez, like I'm a friggin' dinosaur. That was when McAuliffe had a hairline at the score. That's how long ago it was. Let me tell you. So,
Wow.
anyways,
I
keep
won't
going.
tell him
Yeah.
you said. I
Wow.
won't tell him
Again.
you said that.
You can. That's my dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then in addition to all those things, I got to do a lot of stuff with the basketball team, the men's and women. So that's where they gave me an opportunity to do some play-by-play stuff, to do some color analysis stuff, which was a lot of fun. And not, even if you're trying to get into sports media, like I don't think, at least for me, that wasn't something that I was like, oh yeah, one day I'll get to do play-by-play. It just kind of like was like, hey, we need someone on play-by-play today. Do you want to try it? I'm like, heck yeah, I want to try it. So
Hmm.
our mutual friend Doug Plum, that was his fifth year. So his final year, cool. If anyone still follows Canada basketball, guys, that was Connor Morgan's freshman year. So a guy who pops up on the national team from time to time. It was a really strong women's team that year as well, but the men's team was really good too. And that, so in addition to, I got to do play-by-play stuff. So my first time talking to coaches pregame and postgame, grabbing a player after the game for a postgame interview on the radio and stuff like that. And then in addition, I would write for, like, I helped write the programs that people would get when they go to the game. So the first feature story I ever wrote where I talked to a player for the story was with Brill Kamen, who played for UBC that year. So yeah, just a lot of, it was just kind of, any opportunity I could get my hands on for
Hmm.
that year, I would take. And yeah, and build it. So like that UBC, or even though I didn't end up finishing my master's there, that was like incredibly invaluable. Just how much I was able to grind, and then how many opportunities the UBC athletic department was able to throw at me.
I think a couple of things. Well, so you probably average 4.5 hours of sleep a day then, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But also just that idea of, especially for young people to understand that like within boundaries, but it sounds like you said yes a lot because you're like, this is an opportunity that I'm never going to get. And you talked about timing too. It is so interesting. You're clicking right in that era of where streaming starts to come around. And like now you think like you can get the Canada West Pass for whatever, 1999 for the entire year. But like you're just so they're like, yeah, let's just give it to this guy. Whereas who knows down the road they have someone who's a little more qualified or has a resume. It's like, oh no, we have this keen guy who's willing to do it, and you just get to like you just starts the things that you're able to do is like that's just so awesome. Like what an opportunity. And also say too, like timing is everything, and usually people like yourself who are humble and whatever, but they're not just giving it to some clown. If they throw you on the mic and they're like, well, this guy's trash. It's like, Blake, actually we thought maybe you could serve Slurpees at halftime, right? Like they obviously saw something and valued who you were and saw that dedication and the hard work. Now, where does that come from? Is that watching Pops, be a newfie and a hard worker? Is it something you developed over your time? Because a lot of people wouldn't have looked at that as an opportunity like you did, if that what I'm saying makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And again, just to qualify this, like I did, that, like you said, the timing was really fortunate, the opportunities were fortunate, and I've gotten like so many breaks timing wise in my career. Like the year that I left the score to do my own thing full time, the Raptors go on that conference finals run in 2016. It's like the best, most excited anyone's been about the Raptors in like decades. The first year I go to the Athletic, they win the championship. So I've had some good breaks like that. In terms of the hard work, I mean, part of it was I really wanted, like, once I decided to take that jump and try doing that instead of, staying at Toyota or or going to law school or whatever, I really felt I had to make the most of it. And I had initially
Mhm.
given myself a 5-year window of like, if this doesn't work out, if you're not happy, if you can't get a foothold, go back and rejoin the real world. Um, so I thought I owed it to myself if I was going to take that chance to not halfway do it. There's also like a good element of competitiveness
Love
where
it.
hey, if you mentioned it, the saying yes to things. If I don't say yes, they're gonna ask someone else, and then next time they might not come back to me and ask, right? So
Hmm, hmm.
you're right to remind your listeners and especially your students about within boundaries. I still struggle with that. Like I still,
Sure.
even though I've been at Sportsnet for 3 years now, I have freelance mindset, which is like if I say no to anything, that opportunity is never coming back again. So that takes some practice to unlearn. But yeah, so a combination thing. I really wanted to make it work. I thought I owed it to myself. I was competitive. It also there's an element of, and I don't know how conscious this was at the time, but if you feel yourself getting better at something and you can kind of feel the progress or the momentum, whether it's like the actual craft of writing or just like people, Twitter followers is not a good proxy, but you can't. So say Twitter followers back when Twitter was new, and okay, well, more people are reading my work, more people are messing with me. That can kind of feed into it as well. So yeah, it was kind of just a combination of those things. I still have that to a pretty strong degree. Like I prep a lot for my shows. I say yes to a lot of things. I try to work pretty hard. So some of it is probably I'm just wired that way. And then realistically, like I don't know that I'm going to be, better at hosting radio than the person next to me. And I don't know
Hmm.
that I'm going to be better writing than the person next to me. And there's some of that you can't control. Like, what does your voice sound like? How good are you at it naturally? But I can out prep the person next to me. I can outwork the person next to me. So, in terms of things you can control, that's, that's always been that. And I'm a little, not regretful, but I don't think I
Hmm.
had that attitude about sports once I hit like, I don't know, grade 8, grade 9. Where for some athletes it's, and calling myself an athlete is loose use of the term here, but some people that really clicks for them, right? And
Sure.
I'm gonna get in the gym, I want to get better, I want to work hard. And I maybe didn't have that as a player in my youth. So I'm glad I found it now.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, it's a good reflection. I love that, man. Well, let's talk. Let's keep going with it. UBC and just sort of the next sort of steps and phases for you in your career life.
Yeah, so I did the year at UBC. I came home to Cambridge in the summer for a wedding, and while I was here, I kind of, the score at this point, this is so timing wise, the score television station had split off. Sportsnet had acquired that, and the score was kind of revisioning itself as the app and a lot of like original written content. So they were expanding their newsroom in this kind of new vision. So they had reached out, and while I was home, I took an interview, see what it was all about. They wanted to hire me. So I talked to my advisor at UBC, and we kind of kicked it around and decided that the work experience and a foot in the door in the field was going to be more valuable, because I did have the business degree to fall back on. It's you're probably not using a journalism degree that much in 2024 if things don't work out and you have another option. So yeah, that was a tough call, but it seemed like an opportunity to get full-time work in the industry, not glamorous work. Like we're talking 150 word news blasts to the app and stuff like that, but a foot in the door. And hey, when it's slower, we'll let you write some analysis stuff.
Okay.
Maybe we'll get you in it did, they didn't send a lot of people to games, but that was a possibility, things like that. And at the time they let me freelance elsewhere as well. So I could still do
Oh,
my
nice.
Raptors Republic stuff. I could still kind of build that up. So that was 2013. Did 2 years at the
So
score.
is that common? There were like some companies will say like we don't want you to freelance. Like
Yeah,
that's an actual thing,
a
Yeah.
lot of places won't. Like at
Okay.
Sportsnet right now, I can't freelance anywhere else other than like
Yeah.
I'll do the wrestling commentary on the side, but like Sportsnet doesn't have a wrestling
Yeah.
company. So it's if
Right.
I wanted to do some music stuff, I could probably do that, but nothing sports related. So a
Got
lot
you.
of the contracts now, especially if you're full time, will be exclusive. But at that time, the score let you freelance. So that was one of the reasons that I left. They changed that policy in
Mm,
2015. So I did 2 years there, and then it was a good job, a good like entry level thing for sure.
yeah.
But I was getting a little hungrier than writing news alerts and stuff like that. And if you're gonna do long hours and late nights and weekends and stuff like that for no money, you better be like happy with what you're doing. And I was like, okay, I'm like career wise, I'm ready to take the next step. I'm ready to do something else. So talked to the guys that I own and ran Raptors Republic with about what that could look like, reached out to some outlets about possibly freelancing. And by the way, when the score hired me, the idea was because I can do every sport, I would be valuable and versatile and I could bounce around. And then, like, within a minute, it was like, you're a basketball guy. We're going to keep you on basketball. Hey, you'll lead the draft coverage and stuff like that, which was great. So when I went freelance, most of what I was doing, I had Raptors Republic as my home base. And then most of what I was doing was basketball stuff. I'd mix in the odd baseball or wrestling or whatever,
Mm,
especially in the off season. But yeah, so kind of just kept rolling from there. And through Raptors Republic as my home base, and then freelancing, I did some Vice stuff, the odd ESPN thing, Sportsnet before I worked there full time. At some point the Athletic came along as well, and I was freelancing for them. So it's cool. Again, just like a lot of that mentality of saying yes to stuff, trying to turn Raptors Republic into not just an opinion site, but somewhere you could come for news and analysis and stuff like that. And then, that 2015, 2016 was not only a big year for the Raptors, but for my career, it was the first year of the G League. So I really went to the G League and like grinded my to try to get my skills up. Like I didn't think I was a good enough feature writer. I
mm,
didn't have enough experience sitting down and interviewing players or doing scrums with coaches. The Raptors were willing to give me a credential sometimes, but not all the time to the NBA team. So I just kind of banged that G League drum and tried to make that my own thing as well. And then yeah, like really fortunate timing with the Raptors going on a fun run that year. So not to open up my pocketbook or anything, but if a team gets bounced in the first round versus if they
yeah.
make it to the third round, that is an extra month of income you have as a freelancer and as someone who runs a Raptors site. So yeah, and then like the rest of it's pretty straightforward from there. Like
Yeah.
at some point the Athletic comes along and wants me exclusive, and then Sportsnet comes along. It's kind of just rolled from there. But that's yeah, that's the journey to that point. Is at that point I wanted to do more. I thought I could kind of do my own brand of of writing that mixes analysis and storytelling and stuff like that. And then the Raptors did me some big favors by getting good in a hurry there.
It's all that hard work by our guy Johnny Lee behind the scenes with boys. That's why
That's right.
keeping them healthy. Um, Amazing, man. Love it. Where so just from I'm totally naive to it. So like someone like the Athletic is reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, we've seen what you've been up to," or is there a connection or a lead? Like, how does that part of the industry work? And just
So most outlets, you're cold calling them, and it's
yeah.
a frustrating part of the job, and it takes a lot of patience.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, like, at its peak, Twitter was helpful for stuff. You make friends in the industry, and hey, I saw you wrote for this place. Do you mind kicking me the editor's email? And you're gonna get told no a lot, but you can only try. Sometimes you get lucky of like, hey, I just happened to run into Nick Young before the game and we had a good chat that I wasn't expecting. Do you want a story on it? And, sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no.
Yeah.
Then with the Athletic, though, because they were a startup, they were brand new, they reached out to me. So they were looking, Toronto was the second city that they launched in. They were going to hire Eric Green full time, and they wanted a freelancer to supplement with that. So they had reached out to me and, been like, hey, would you kick us one or two pieces a week? And then it just kind of built from there. Once you're in with a place that you're freelancing for, they'll come to you a little bit. Or you
Mm-hmm.
can come up with some sort of, hey, once a week, twice a week, whatever agreement. um, and then as a freelancer, you'll always push that because the more you write, the more you get paid. Like, how
Yeah.
about three this week? I got three ideas for you. Yeah, I want a new pair of shoes. So
Yeah.
here's an extra idea. Sorry, my cat is attacking the webcam.
That's okay. No
Um,
worries.
so yeah, that's kind of how that works. So the Athletic was kind of
Cool.
a unique case because they were brand new. And then yeah, at 2018, they came to me and they were like, "Hey, would you consider not writing anywhere else? We want to hire you full time." And then yeah, then you figure that out, and I had to kind of hand Raptors Republic off to the next wave of Raptors Republic people. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's kind of just roll from there. And then yeah, the Sportsnet actually reached out to me for this current gig.
Cool. Um, Awesome, man. Like I just love the journey, the ups, downs, and now I can see why the way people describe the grinding, the ability. We had a gentleman named Aaron Phillips was like one of the originators was slammed, kind of very similar in terms of just taking what comes to you and trying to do your best with it. Um, I got one question on career based, and then we'll talk a little bit Raptors and then maybe some Canada basketball before we
Yeah.
do, you tell me what your favorite cereal is. But if you were to give, like thinking about you being someone who this wasn't even a career path in your mind, even at first year university, maybe like thinking about that whole process for you, if you're in my leadership 12 class, what's some advice that you would give someone? Not that I'm going to quote you on this. I'm just thinking of that at the top of my head, like upon reflection and the things that we've talked about, you've given lots of good nuggets. We've talked about, saying yes, also not putting pressure on yourself to know what you're doing because you change so much between 18 and 23
Yeah.
for right like so when you think about where you're at and obviously someone you can still hear you have that hunger and desire to continue to grow, you have a growth mindset, you can just tell by how you speak, what would you tell someone?
Yeah, I think, and this is a lesson you can learn from sports too, is like you look at
Mm,
some of the best player development success stories, right? You look at, I don't know, Pascal Siakam to pick a guy, and a whole lot of how they developed him and how they helped him develop was this idea of why not. It's like,
mm,
okay, you had big numbers posting up at New Mexico State against guys who are barely D1. That can't translate to the NBA. Why not? You're 6'10", you have a decent handle, but guys like that, those are energy guys in the NBA. You can't be you can't be a guy that has the ball in his hand and we run plays for. Why not? Oh, you're a good you've developed into a good number three who's defense and offensive rebounding and stuff. You'll never be a number one guy. Why not? And that's kind of the mentality they had. And I think that's probably a good mentality for young people to have as they're figuring out career stuff is, some stuff's going to seem unrealistic. Some of it's going to be a low probability play. You want to be a rock star or an actor or something like that, that like the chance is not that great that you're going to be the number one actor or the number one rock star. But there are a whole bunch of people who make it in those fields, make it in sports media, make it in sports. And I think this, focusing on the things that you can do and the things that are possible instead of the things that you can't do and maybe you don't think are possible is just it's a more fulfilling way to kind of navigate through life, right? It is focusing on, the positives and the possibilities rather than the restrictions. Now, I say that acknowledging that, like, while I paid for school and stuff like that myself, if I had flopped, I could go, literally move into my mom's basement like a blogger. And then with
Sure.
the risks that I took in my professional career, while I had the business degree that I could fall back on, I know that not everyone's going to have the same, ability to take risks and, same family or financial situations and stuff like that. So I don't mean, hey, just throw out all discretion and do whatever. But
Mom,
yeah,
I was listening to this podcast from this guy, Blake Murphy. He told me just to risk it all.
yeah, yeah. Put it all on. Oh, you
Yeah.
only have half the money for tuition? Well, put it on black, and then you could have the full money for tuition. No, but I do think, in seriousness, the focusing on the possibilities rather than the restrictions is a good way to go, and kind of asking yourself, when you find yourself saying something's unrealistic or you don't think you can do it, asking why not. And then the answer to that, sometimes there might be a real answer, why not? But
Mhm.
sometimes there might not be. And the answer might be, well, because I'm putting ankle weights on myself. I'm telling myself that it can't be. And there's not a real answer underneath why not.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And I think even it takes so long to get to that point. I think for some people to even just see themselves like as humans, we're glass half empty people in a lot of ways, right? We see our flaws, we see the things we don't like about ourselves as opposed to half full and like, what can I get done today? Or maybe I'm not as, unattractive as I think I am, or whatever it is, right? So that's good stuff, man. Um, at least my wife, no, she never tells me I'm attractive.
Come
uh,
on.
yeah, look at this, hey? The moneymaker. Does Masai have a lifetime pass, or will, if things don't turn around for the Raptors, will there be some change, do you think? Or is one championship enough for
I
forgiveness?
wouldn't say lifetime, and I say this on the back of some reporting from Michael Grange and Elliot Friedman earlier this year.
Shout out
Masai,
Grange.
yeah, has he been on the show
Yeah.
before?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah. And Juan Mendez, too. You gave a Juan Mendez shout out. We've
Nice,
had, yeah, yeah, buddy. We go deep
nice.
here.
Um, have you had Denim before?
No,
Denim
been
Brown?
back and
Okay.
forth. Would love to get him.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That'd be I would really like to listen to that one. Okay, sorry. So, Grange and Elliot Friedman were reporting toward the end of the season that, Masai's deal is up in 2026. I think everyone, if nothing else was going to change and the Raptors were reasonably good, people would probably be like, yeah, just roll it over, whatever. But Masai is one of the highest paid executives in basketball in North American sports. Um, Larry Tannenbaum has been his biggest supporter, and Larry Tannenbaum controls 2/8 of the board, kind of, 3 seats for Rogers, 3 seats for Bell, two for Kilmer Sports Group. There have been rumblings that Tannenbaum might look to sell his stake at some point. He obviously has Kilmer Sports Ventures on the side that is bringing a WNBA team to Toronto and looking at other, international team opportunities and stuff like that. So again, I recommend everyone go read the piece from Grange and Elliott. I think it was in early April or late May. But there are some question marks about, hey, if Larry Tannenbaum were to sell off, the Rogers side of the board has changed since last time we went through all this with Masai post championship and stuff. I don't think it's as locked in. And then there's also a Masai element of, he has always had a lot of ambitions beyond just basketball, growing the game in Africa,
Giants
doing
of
a lot of
Africa.
good
Yeah.
work with his Giants of Africa program, had a hand in Basketball Africa League as well. So, is there a next thing for Masai that maybe isn't running a basketball team is a consideration that people closer to him than I am would know. But yeah, I don't think it's a lifetime lock anymore. I'm kind of looking at summer 2026 of we'll have to keep an eye on the what MLSE looks like and things like that.
Hmm.
Which is weird to
Interesting.
say, right? After the last
Yeah.
decade.
Yeah, it really is. But it's interesting too. You touch on the layers of it, right? And that's why they pay you to dive in and figure it out. So like things that people wouldn't think of. such a good guy. But it is true, is something to be said. Like I think sometimes in the NBA, especially with coaches, as we saw with the Bucks this year, maybe quick to make a change or too quick. Certain people get put on blast, quote unquote. But there is also time where it's like, okay, change can be healthy, right? So it'll be interesting to see if you were him. What's the first thing you're doing with the roster? Is there a positional player you're going for? Is it so rough that you got to almost start ground up again? What do you think?
I don't think it's that rough, but I think I'm in a spot with them where the specifics and the fit, like obviously fit always matters, but
Sure.
right now they need more talent in the door. They are at a talent deficit rather relative to other teams, and they've got some positive things to build with. Excited, like Scotty Barnes could, repeat as an all-star next year. Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett, very good young players. Grady Dick had a much better second half this season than first half. But even if all of those things are true and those guys take a step forward, you look around and it's like, okay, the defending champion Denver Nuggets were like, we don't have enough depth, and they run 9
Yeah.
deep. You're gonna need
Yeah.
more players in the door, more talent in the door. So I'm not as nitpick, especially with the picks that they have in the draft. Like at that point in a draft that's not that great and is flatter. I mean, take the guy you like and the guy you think has the biggest upside. Don't worry about like, oh, we have a need at backup point guard right now.
Hmm.
Because the
Hmm.
rosters change quickly, guys develop differently. I'm swinging for upside on the draft side of it, and I think in free agency, if they dip into the free agent pool with the potential cap space they have, you're trying to shoot a little younger and a guy who can grow with you rather than just someone who fits the roster on paper right now. So I think the first transaction they've got to figure out though is can you find a home for Bruce Brown on draft night, because they got to pick up the option on him or not pick up the option on him before free agency starts. So you need to know by draft night kind of, do you have a landing spot for him? And I say that because that'll dictate what comes back if you get players back. Maybe it changes the draft situation if you use him as a piece to move up or something like that. But most importantly, that's a $23 million salary piece that either is on your books or is not.
Hmm.
So that's going to dictate a lot of what you can do with Gary Trent, with other free agents and stuff like that. But to the spirit of your question, I'm just saying get talent in the door. And, if you end up back where you started, it's like we have too many power forwards, but they're good. I'll take that over we don't have enough good players.
Yeah. 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 Look at that. Whew. I love it. Good stuff. Um, let's talk Canada basketball here, man.
Yeah.
Unreal. But some interesting things have unfolded, and this is the interesting scenario with qualifying, and then you have a full year, right? And some of the guests that we've had on that are, insight into it a little more than myself, and but just sort of thinking about, you're watching the Pacers play, and now all of a sudden Embard starts hooping, and there's back and forth as Jamal. So, what do you think? What's your gut telling you? You don't have to, use any of your sources or anything, but um there's some tough decisions to be made, because there is also that element of that group that got us there. I say us like I'm part of it, but which I think
We're
we
all
should have
part of
more
it at this
personal.
point, buddy.
Yeah, right. Um, and those are the weird things that happen, right? Is like what they went through as a group means something, but also if you can bring a Jamal, So, what's your sense? Your spidey sense is telling you about the whole thing.
Yeah, so I'm of two minds about it, because the first thing that comes to mind is like, I'm a World Cup guy. That's a bigger
Okay.
tournament. That's a longer tournament. That's a tougher tournament. Like the fact that they won bronze at the World Cup is a huge deal to me and shouldn't be looked at just as that's a way to qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah,
I know that in North America, that's kind of how we view it and how the cycle goes. But I do think that, hey, this is what we did to qualify for the Olympics, so we should keep that group together. While I understand it from a commitment standpoint, like that group already accomplished a
sure.
huge thing, right? So I don't think it would be, a knock to that team or those guys if they went a different direction necessarily.
Yeah,
I think the idea behind getting 14 guys to commit to a multi-year window was a good one in spirit, given the practicalities of the NBA, the way that some teams handle their young players and their availability, what we know about when guys hit free agency and stuff like that. I don't know that it was all that pragmatic to be firm about it, and that's why I think you're
sure.
seeing guys be players speak openly about being open to the idea if management sees so. Management stance has softened a little bit. They've also changed head coaches since then, so who knows how much of that was a Nick Nurse thing. My opinion on it is that you're there, and I don't want to get 12 new guys in there, but if at the very fringes of the roster you can address areas that you were weak in the World Cup, I think you owe it to the core guys and to basketball in the country to make the most of that opportunity. So you know,
It's like poetic. You hear how he's talking? It's said so well. Well done. That was beautiful.
um,
Keep going.
yeah, it's beautiful, and then you got to take someone's spot off the team, and it gets ugly real quick.
Right?
But like you mentioned Nembhard, like I I think Aaron Nembhard would do a lot for that team. They struggled a little bit with backup point guard play. Even just the ability to get Shea off the ball a little bit, or Jamal. I know Jamal's going to be back in there, so that
Hmm.
changes your guard dynamic as well. But Nembhard has gotten to a point where we got to talk about him as like one of the 5 best Canadian basketball players, I think. So getting him in there would be big. Guys like Shaden Sharp and Benedict Mathurin, maybe a little less so.
Hmm.
I don't know that their track records are enough yet to say, yes, they absolutely have to be in there. I've been told, not from Canada basketball sources, but from Indiana and Portland sources, that both of those teams would love for those guys to play.
Hmm.
Everyone has seen now the benefits of getting to do that, right? And
For
both of
sure.
those guys are also coming off injury. So if you can get a couple game reps in, shake some of the
Yeah.
rust off before training camp. This is also the timing of the Olympics is way better for guys off season than the World Cup, which happens in September, right before training camps. So my read on Sharp and Mathurin is that they'll be in camp, but they're probably only an outside shot of making the team. So I think that's probably what we're looking at. Like if you're the core 7 or 8 guys from that World Cup team, if you put your hand up and say you want to play, you've got a spot. Those back 3 or 4 spots, and no disrespect to Trey Bell Haynes, who's incredible, great
Yep.
international career, but he's probably a guy who's fighting for his spot. Zach Edey,
Yep.
it'll depend a little bit on who drafts him.
I was gonna ask you. Yeah.
And whether they let him go. But I could see, it being a competition. Hey, you're one of the guys who didn't commit and you want to be a part of this now. It's going to be a training camp battle for those last couple spots. And I think that's a fair way to do it. And a good reminder to those guys next Olympic cycle. Yeah, better show up for the World Cup, guys.
So true. It's kind of funny though, hey, just to be in this sort of place where like on our group chats, we're watching Shea and Dort play in the playoffs. But we're also talking about like, yeah, we want them to do well in advance, but also with each game and practice that goes further for the season, so it's funny because as a nation on the men's side, we haven't been in this situation for so long. There's so many different sort of elements and draws. I was going to ask you your thoughts on ED too. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see it play out. And I do like that. I do like your thought on like, yes, committing to the guys that the top 7 or 8, but also, hey, if you want to come back to this, we're going to put you through a camp and show it, and you're going to show that you actually want to be here, which I think is great. But in the end, what an awesome problem to have,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah, we're not talking about which 1 or 2 NBA guys might come out. We're talking about, which guys might not make the team, and balancing our very high-end European players with, NBA guys that don't have that level of FIBA experience, which is always something to keep in mind too. Like if it were me, Melvin Ejim's spot's pretty safe given what he's meant to this program and the knowledge of the
OG.
FIBA game and what he's meant to a lot of the young guys in the program as well. I know some fans who are maybe more NBA only fans probably look at and say, well, okay, we can give that guy spot to an NBA guy, invite out Trey Lyles or something like that. But yeah, those are things they'll have to weigh as well.
Hmm. I'm heading down in July for the exhibition between
Nice,
the U.S. and Canada there. Yeah, so that'll be fun. The wife wouldn't exactly let France happen, so I figured this was a good 1A, so
nice.
should be good.
Yeah,
Exciting
no
times.
France for me either. So
Yeah. Are you a prediction guy? Like what for the men and women on both sides, what do you think is meddling in it? And we've had many on the women's side too. And we had
mhm.
Steve Bauer, who's a coach with the women's program, talk about how disappointing, I believe it was Japan was, right? And just how they were stuck for 24 hours because of the COVID protocols, and just sort of reflecting on being at that standard of meddling is now an option for us, right? And so
Mhm.
my fear is, especially on the men's side, is because we haven't been there in so long, how do we work through all those things that come with that? in the pool play and understanding how important those games are. But what are your thoughts as we get closer towards it for both sides?
Yeah, I made a sports that had me do some bold predictions for 2024 at the start of the year, and I said that Canada's going to double dip in the podium. I won't go as far as double gold or anything like that. And look, the odds are against that, right? Like
Sure.
on the men's side, Canada will probably rank somewhere in the, like, I don't know, 2 to 6 range when the betting
Yeah.
lines come out or something like that, depending on,
Yeah.
we heard the other day Giannis is maybe going to play for Greece. That changes what the team coming out of that qualifier looks like, etc. The women probably more in the 4 to 8 range, given how they've struggled over the last year or so, and barely punch their ticket in. But I think the fact that you can talk about that, and the fact that both teams should, at a minimum, have a goal of getting to the quarterfinals is really, really exciting.
It really is. It's going to be awesome. All right. Let's do some speed round and we'll get you on your way. All right. Thanks for this, buddy.
All right.
Been really great. Who's been some of the most important people in your life?
Professionally or just in general?
It's your episode, my guy.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. This question always runs the risk of if you
Forgetting.
if you leave someone out. Yeah. So obviously parents and family and things like that. I will say my friend Dave Power was we were like day one, grade 9 friends. He's probably the person who's most responsible for getting me into basketball. Just yeah, that friendship kind of pulled me into basketball. Professionally as well, Carl English being that guy, the first person I ever got to interview, allowing me to help him write his book. Catherine Gretzinger was my advisor at UBC, who kind of like pushed me a lot with a lot of the stuff we've talked about, and kind
Hmm.
of was one of the voices that was like, hey, you should take the opportunity, get your foot in the door in the industry, and build from there. There are a million others. Eric Kareen, who was my counterpart at the Athletic, like I think I improved a lot as a writer working with him and like playing off of him and stuff like that. Will Liu, who I did the Raptor show with this year, but whose relationship goes back to like the early days of Raptors Republic with me and him. Just a lot of people. There are a lot. I feel badly. I'm gonna miss some.
It's all good, man. I don't think anybody that's offended will probably doesn't deserve a shout out anyways. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know about that.
Okay. So you said that you're a emo punk guy. So I'm interested to see where this goes. The artists can be dead or alive. You got the best seat in the house and the best venue that you think or you've been to. Who are some of the people you want to go see in a live show?
So I have one of these coming up in August, actually. So I've seen a lot of concerts. So the bands of like I haven't seen them, but I want to. The list is pretty small. So
Okay.
it's maybe not the ideal venue. It's a Budweiser stage in Toronto, but I'm gonna see Slipknot this summer, which
Oh,
I've never seen them,
you
and
haven't
they
seen
are
them.
no.
Now, why is that? Have you just missed them or do they not
Yeah,
tour
it's just
lots
just
or
the way it's worked out.
yeah.
I think when they were here last, I was supposed to go and a work thing came up. Like if I'm remembering right, last time they were here, I was supposed to go, and then they asked me if I wanted to do Jay's color commentary on the radio for that series of games. I'm like, well, I can't turn down doing color on the radio to go
Right?
see Slipknot. So yeah, they're one of my favorite bands that I've never seen, and that's happening this summer. So I will pick that one for convenience.
Love it. Attaboy. For convenience. Soft answer, man. That's soft. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Judging by the shelves that I see behind you, I think I see records, maybe DVDs, but
Yeah.
books or movies. We're going books.
Yeah, I'm more of a books guy. I'm not the I have my comfort movies that I'll revisit, and I'm a
Okay.
sucker for even bad sports movies.
Yeah, you
But
are.
I read a lot more than I watch movies.
Okay. Um, is there a couple of all-timers for you or something you've read recently that you'd like to recommend to the guests that you think would be worthwhile? And what's your genre of, are you all over the place?
Yeah, I'm a little all over the place. I
Yep.
I read a good amount of nonfiction as well, just to kind of keep up keep the brain going. As I botched that sentence, you can see why I need to sharpen the brain a little bit. So I don't know. I'll read some like cognitive psych kind of stuff. Obviously sports books when they come out. Best book I ever read is Chasing a Dream, the Carl English story as told to Blake Murphy.
Oh, yeah. Sounds like a good read.
No, and then I'll do fiction. Fiction's a little bit more enjoyable, like a turn the brain off kind of thing. Like the same way people who would watch, I've got my documentaries are the nonfiction books, and then movies are the fiction books. but yeah, a couple that come to mind recently. My favorite book I read last year was a book called Demon Copperhead. Really interesting exploration of someone who's like in the kind of Appalachian South and falls into the opioid epidemic there, but told from like a really personal, emotional, and very funny level too. It's a really entertaining book. There was one a couple years ago as well, and I'll mention it because it takes place in Newfoundland, by Megan Gale Coles, called Small Game Hunting at the Local Coward Gun Club. Don't really know how to describe that one. It's just kind of one of those ones where like a few different characters and a few different storylines are floating around, and then they end up intertwining. I believe I can't remember if Megan, the author, is from Newfoundland or she just went to Munn. But there's a Newfie connection there, so I got a real kick out of that part as well.
Awesome. Um, okay, you're reading one of those books, or you've got some downtime and you're chilling and you're feeling snacky. What is the greatest bag of chips? Like, what are we getting if we're into a bag of chips?
Yeah, I'd probably go sweet chili heat Doritos.
Oh, yeah, you
Um,
would.
yeah, I'm more of a Dorito over potato chip guy, and then that's probably the top flavor. Although someone did tell me there is now a spicy garlic Dorito. Haven't seen them in stores around here yet, so I'm on the hunt.
Wow, I have not heard of those. Hey, that's something to be checking out. Spicy garlic. Woof. Love that. Okay, now this is you. So this is your hoop dreams, and you can take this however you want. You're back on the West Coast. You're at Kits, nice summer day, but you need four players to run with you. And like if you lose, you may not get back on the court. You just got to go suntan or play beach volleyball or just go to local and have a pint. So this could be some of your favorite all-time players. They could be your Canadians. They could be your homies from high school. Whatever it is, it's who are you going with and why? And
All
now
right.
this is outdoor game too, right? Like call
Okay.
your own twos and threes, first to 21. So it's a different game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is tough. Okay. So, I mean, Carl's going to be on there. There's no style of game where the shooting isn't valuable, right? Especially actually in twos and ones, the outside shooting is arguably even more valuable.
Sure.
Um, Look, I don't have a lot of games, so I need an offense created where I don't have to do much. I could just play that Andre Roberson role and just D up. Um, so yeah, man, it's outdoor specifically, eh?
Mhm.
Um, all right. I'm gonna go with Ray for Alston. Am I getting
Oh,
these guys at their main age? Like I'm not
oh
getting
yeah,
like
yeah. Peak,
okay.
prime. Yeah, for
Okay. So
sure.
Ray for Alston, obviously the
Skip to
the
my Lou.
Raptors connection, the Skip to Mylou and one connection, and like as I was becoming a basketball fan, like a very cool figure of like, oh, I'm watching and one mixtapes. This guy's a Raptor now. What the heck?
Right?
Um, this is less street ball oriented.
Okay.
Maybe the pick doesn't fit the setting here, but Jose Calderon is probably my all-time favorite Raptor until recent years. Obviously, there's an element of shooting there, someone to get us organized. Not sure him and Skip are the best defensive backcourt, but we'll. Well,
Well,
I've also created a team where I'm playing power forward now,
yeah, I was
which
gonna
is
say, yeah. Okay, so but what was it about Jose that makes him one of your favorite? Was it how he was? Like, was it his play, or was it him as a person, or a combo of it all?
yeah, a combination of everything. I mean, I
Hmm.
always appreciated the like lethal efficiency when he did shoot. I think he's a fascinating guy of like if he came around now, teams would probably have him taking like 8, 10 threes a game instead
Mm.
of being more of a pass first guy. Always seemed very nice. And then so right around the time he came to the Raptors, my mom didn't know her father when she was younger, but
Hmm.
found out who he was, found him, and he's Spanish. Like he's from Spain. So right around the time the Raptors got Jose Calderon, I found out I'm a quarter Spanish. So that just kind of lined up there. Um,
Cool.
yeah, in that way. Now I
Okay.
got to pick a center, eh?
I
Because this
mean, it
team
is 2024 though. If you want to just fire three balls and have everybody can stand around the perimeter and Rafer can break everyone down. I mean, it's your world.
yeah, you could, but someone's got to set a screen here, right? I got shooters and handlers everywhere, and I'm strong, but I don't know if I'm a screen setter. Who do I go to as a big here? This is tough because like I've never played with like a big, so I don't know. Like probably the tallest person I played with is like 6'5". I don't know. Actually, that's not true. My friend Stu is 6'7", but he's like a perimeter oriented big. So that's
See?
that's no good either. I need someone inside here. Um, hmm. This is a tough one. You know what? For
Yeah,
the career and UBC connection, I'm gonna call Connor Morgan as my fifth. We'll keep it Vancouver, keep it UBC career connection. Um, yeah, we'll go with that.
I love it. So we got you, Connor, Carl English, Jose Calderon, Rafer, Skip to
Yeah,
Malou Alston. I love it.
yeah. It's a
Connor had a
weird team, but
fantastic
we'll make
career.
it work.
Hey, yeah, I mean, we got Slipknot playing on
Yeah,
the sidelines while you're playing. Like it's the best ever, right?
yeah.
So why not? Shout out to
Yeah, I
Connor.
don't think you could play that on the courts. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
they would walk you out of kits politely.
Okay, what's the greatest cereal of all time?
Huh. I'm not really a big cereal guy.
Go back to the even when you're a kid.
Nah, not really.
Really?
Yeah, I mean I would eat it, but
Yeah.
I don't know. What are some cereals?
Honey Nut Cheerios. We
I
got
guess
Fruit
corn
Loops.
pops probably would have been my
Yeah,
favorite as a kid. Um, yeah.
it's a good pick.
I
Corn
was thinking
Pops.
of those like Reese peanut butter puff ones that turn the milk like
Dark.
chocolatey too,
Yeah.
but I don't like that's just candy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's barely a cereal.
It's so true. Corn Pops, you needed like the right amount of milk because if you
Yeah.
had them when they're too dry, they just rip the roof of your mouth.
Yeah,
But
and
then if
can't
the
go too
milk was sitting
soggy
too
because then
long,
they're
too
just
soggy,
mush.
yeah,
Yeah.
see, not bad.
The
Um,
key is a series of small bowls instead of one large bowl.
Look at that. He says he's not a cereal guy, but somehow finds a way. Okay. All right. Uh, do you have a hidden talent that people might not know about?
Not really. I don't think so. I'm a very bad singer. I have done some screamy parts before. I could do the I could get you your Slipknot Alexis on Fire kind of screaming. No, I got very this is part of the issue with like living your life on the internet and being on screen and on mic every day. Everybody knows everything about me already.
Right. Fair. Um, Now you said you're kind of emo punk. Do you ever rock some City and Color? Speaking of Alexis on Fire,
Yeah, yeah. Like City and Color a lot. I've actually
Dallas is the
because
man.
yeah, he's a big Raptors fan.
Yeah.
So have gotten to know him a little bit. Like he sent me a
No
video
way.
during the championship run that they were doing sound check and he was just like playing Fred Van Vliet clips. And then I didn't get to go because I was in Newfoundland actually. But they were when they uh after the championship, they played two nights at Bud Stage, and Nick Nurse went out, and like the Raptor was out there and stuff. They had like a Raptors inspired shirt that they dropped as well. It was very cool tie-in.
Nice. Yeah.
That was
Nurse is
sorry,
a
that
big
was
music
Alexis.
guy.
That was Alexis, not City in Color, but
Yeah.
same guy. So we're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I've seen City and Color like 4 times. They're just unreal
Nice.
at especially at the QE here and like a nice smaller venue and just yeah. Okay, man, this has been great. Really appreciate your time. Last question for you, and if you don't want to put anybody on blast, you don't have to, but who should we connect with? But you're the plug. Who's out there for a hoops journey that has a good story? Obviously, we've had Carl on, one of the best stories we've ever had, like no doubt. But is there someone out there that you think would be willing to chop it up with us and have some fun?
Yeah, I mean, just it came up earlier in the show because you haven't had him on. I would love to hear the Denham Brown story, right? Like, I think people know it a little bit. I think at
Hmm.
one point he was working on a doc or something, but I don't know what the status of that was. Maybe the timing will be fortunate. He's got something to promote
Yeah,
and come on with you. I've got his email somewhere, so I could kick it to you
cool.
afterward.
Yeah,
But that's a guy like, yeah, I mean, when I first got into basketball, he was the first guy who was supposed to be up next for Canada, right?
yeah,
The quick supersonics, then and obviously still had a good career, played for the national team and stuff. But I would love to hear about, because that's kind of it's kind of the end of one era in terms of how Canadian basketball guys would get scouted and how you
it's
could get
true.
noticed, and that then that wave started coming to the NBA. I'd be fascinated to hear that one.
We went back and forth on DM'd him on Instagram and just didn't work out. But I was trying to get him for like 111 when because he had 111 in high school or whatever,
Nice.
right? So I thought that'd be cool. So yeah, let's keep the pressure. I agree. Great story, and I think there would be lots of things that probably he went through that people don't even know about, and it'd be really interesting to hear his perspective. Um, Last thoughts, ideas, reflections before we let you go. Thanks, man, and congratulations, continued success to you. Like really, really cool story. You were able to fight your way through battling the UBC Thunderbirds and everything that came with that. But you seem like a genuinely happy-go-lucky guy, and that you seem like you're in a good place and you want to continue to learn and grow. But well done, man, and continued success to you. Last thoughts and ideas?
No, I really appreciate that. It mean the kind words mean a lot. These things are always like fun to do because it does force you to reflect on things in a way that you don't day to day.
Sure.
So it is cool to kind of take a minute here with you and look back on it. Yeah, it's really making me want to visit Vancouver. I haven't been back to Vancouver since I dropped out. So I'm due a visit there. But no, and really it does. This has been a conversation mostly about me, but there's a real conversation about Canadian basketball and how someone like me who grew up hockey only, like family pushed into hockey, played hockey year round and stuff, can find basketball and it can become their like main thing and kind of take that spot. And I don't know, anytime I talk deeply with people like you about basketball and how much it means to different people, it gets me very, very excited for the Olympics. It's just like,
Yeah.
I know it's not like Canada basketball is not everything, but it really does feel like this summer could be a connecting thread for all of us and a reason for a lot of us to have more of these kind of conversations and really celebrate basketball in Canada.
I agree, man. That's so well said. Yeah. I mean, when we qualified, it was like, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a little bit emotional. I was like, man, because I had buddies on the 2000 team, like the last team to make it, right? And when you think about what's happened in that time, and then we had Michael Bartlett on too, and he gave some good reflection about sort of, cheer for Canada like you would AC Milan or the Raptors or whatever, like, keep that same energy. So continued success. Hey, listen, maybe you need to get a media pass and come out for Raptors camp when they come out usually, man. That'll be your way to get back all the
Yeah.
boys. You got Grange, you can see Johnny Lee again and hang out and go hit. And it's decent time of year. It's Octoberish, right? But
Yeah, well, the
I'm
the
just
one
planning your
complicating
life for you.
factor, the complicating